So I thought I'd introduce you to our first site. This is a place called Etruria, and it's very darkly stained black water. As you can see, it's almost red, and the visibility is not very far in it. Just, you know, you could be standing knee deep and not see your feet. It's very dark black water. But if you're interested in where we are, we're pretty close to the equator. I have GPS coordinates for it. We'll do some interesting water sampling here. I've got a little pH pen here. This is not, I calibrated this at home and tested it in my own fish tanks. It seems pretty accurate. So I'm just gonna grab a little sample here out of the river. Looking at conductivity first, because that's what I have this set up to read. You can see it's about 26.7 microsiemens. So really not a whole lot of conductivity, very low number. We've got a total dissolved solid of 9.9, 0.01 salinity, parts per thousand, and the pH still going down, 4.33. That's in this dark red water at Etruria. So we're gonna take a look around and show you some of the fish that are here in this underwater site. And thanks for sticking with us. One of the most defining features of this habitat that I'd like to point out to you is how dark the black water is. This is very darkly stained from the tannins in the watershed. So the water itself is this dark red color. And these are a bunch of Hemigrammus tetras that were sort of ubiquitous at all of the sites that we visited. I believe that this one is Hemigrammus caerulleus, the watermelon tetra, but I'm not entirely sure. These fish are honestly very frustrating to identify. You can see a lot of soft, fine sand is the substrate here. Here's a freshwater barracuda, and that sand is actually very, very, very white. It looks a little bit stained because of the color of the water here, but if you pull it out, like a handful of it, it's very, very white. More of these Hemigrammus tetras. And you can see that there's a lot of structure and like roots and plant matter and debris and things hanging out of the creek bank. Here's some pale cichlids, Aquidens pallidus, that are making use of any of this little microhabitat where those roots and branches and things stick out of the creek bank. So lots of good little places for fish to hide. And you'll see here more of that soft, fine sand. A lot of suspended solids here, but that's not naturally a part of the habitat. That's more a factor of people snorkeling around here and sort of stirring up some of the detritus and stuff. You'll see coming up here that where the water is slow and pooled and where people haven't been swimming around in it, the water is actually very lacking of any kind of suspended solids. Right here you can see this slow pool with all the leaf litter on the bottom of it. The water itself actually has very little stuff in it, but is very darkly stained by those tannins in the watershed. So you'll see here, Fernando's going to introduce us to the faster moving water in the Igarape here up above the waterfall.
So this is Project Piaba, second day of the trip, and we are at our first diving spot, Etruria. Very, very dark water. Very black water, very red water. And we just caught a neon tetra a little bit upstream, and I'm going to swim a little bit, and here you can see a stream, a small waterfall. Let's see what we can find down here.
Again, look how dark this water is, and here below the waterfall where it's being agitated, there's a little bit of silt and detritus and things that are stirred up, but you can see on the bottom of that layer of detritus is actually soft, fine sand. And this is a spot where, because the water was so fast-moving, this is one of the few places where there were actually some rocks. There's some leaf litter here in this part where the water's kind of pooling and swirling under the waterfall. And lots of little fish were making use of this habitat. But these rocks were actually kind of a cool hiding spot for some of the larger fish, like some of the pike cichlids and the pale cichlids, Aquidens pallidus. This is one spot where we saw a whole lot of those guys. Not a whole lot of rocks throughout the Rio Negro region. The bedrock is actually very deep. There's a lot more organic material than there is rocks. So a lot more places have sand and silt and mud and organics than they do rocks. But this was one spot where there were lots of like shelves of rocks and structure like that. So you can see this is also very interesting habitat. And again, the gentle capture of many species of home aquarium fish from habitat just like this throughout the Rio Negro region drives conservation by disincentivizing environmentally destructive practices.